In the previous part, we discussed the first two parts of the book, and now we will discuss the part 3 of the book, how to win people to your way of thinking. In this part of the book, you will learn ways to win people to your way of thinking without forcing them. Lesson 10. You can't win an argument. One night the author was attending a banquet with his friend Frank Gammond. During the dinner, he engaged in a conversation with the man who came up with a quote and said that this quote was from the Bible. But the author corrected him and said that it was from Shakespeare. The man refused to accept that, resulting in an argument. Frank Gammond also claimed that this quote was from the Bible, not from Shakespeare. On their way back home, the author asked Frank why he didn't tell the man that the quote was actually from Shakespeare. Frank replied with an important lesson: always avoid arguments. He explained that winning an argument will not make the other person like you. It's better to let them save face. Remember, there's no point in arguing, because if you lose an argument, you lose. And if you win an argument, you still lose. So avoid arguments. Lesson 11. A sure way of making enemies and how to avoid it. Once the author hired an interior decorator to make some curtains for his home, but when he received the bill, the price was too much. After a few days, a friend came and she saw the curtains and asked the price. After hearing the price, she said, "Dale, you paid too much. The decorator fooled you." Despite feeling that he had overpaid, he defended himself, saying that good quality comes at a high price. The next day, another friend came, and when she saw the curtains and heard the price, she said, "Oh, I wish I could also afford such expensive decorations for my home." The author's reaction was completely different, and he said, "Oh no, I paid too much for this." He himself admitted his mistake. Never tell people on their face that they are wrong, because most of the time they will defend themselves, even when they know they are wrong. Theodore Roosevelt once said that if he could be right 75% of the time, he would reach his highest potential. A man like Roosevelt thinks that at max he can be right 75% of the time, and most of us think that we are right 100% of the time. If you can be right just 55% of the time, you could make a fortune on Wall Street, so don't tell people that they are wrong. Lesson 12. If you are wrong, admit it. When you admit your mistake, your opponent will be calmed and will offend you less. The author had a Chinese student who had not seen his son and grandchildren in years due to his opium addiction, but now he was cured. He was hesitating to go to his son and apologize, because in China, there's a tradition that in case of conflict, the young person must respect the elder and take the initiative to solve the problem. After taking Dale Carnegie's course, this Chinese student realized his mistake. He broke the traditional barrier and apologized to his son. As a result, he is now happily living with his son and grandchildren. So when you are wrong, admit it. Lesson 13. A drop of honey. Abraham Lincoln, one of the most effective men ever known, once said that a drop of honey catches more flies than a gallon of gall. In this phrase, honey means friendliness and gall means bold and rude behavior. Author student Gail Connor once took his car to the service department for the third time in 4 months. Despite his frustration, he approached the agency owner Mr. White in a friendly manner. He told him that their price and service is really good, but this is his third visit in 4 months. He explained the situation without criticizing him. Mr. White thanked him for calling this to his attention and personally got involved and solved Gail's problem, even lending his personal car to Gail for use. So avoid being rude and talk in a friendly way. Lesson 14. The secret of Socrates. The great philosopher Socrates was known as one of the best persuaders. How did he persuade people? He used a method called the yes method. Never start with the things you and the other person differ on. Instead, focus on the things you both agree on. Here's an example. Author student James Eberson works in a bank, and he used this technique to save a customer. A customer came to open an account, and James gave him the usual form that needs to be filled. The customer answered some of the questions, but the rest of the questions he refused to answer. James used this yes method and said, "You are right, you are absolutely right. These questions are not necessary if you don't want to answer them. But let's say you have money in your account and something happens to you. Don't you want the bank to give that money to your next of kin according to the law?" The customer replied, "Yes." "Don't you want the money to be transferred by the bank without any error and problem?" Again, the customer replied, "Yes." The customer's attitude changed and he got into a more accepting attitude. He realized that the information he was giving was for his own benefit, and he gave answers to all the questions. So talk about the things you both agree on. Lesson 15. The safety valve in handling complaints. Whenever somebody is complaining, the first step is to listen to them. Mrs. Wilson had a bad relationship with her daughter Lori because Lori wouldn't obey her. Mrs. Wilson would scold and shout, but it didn't work. One day Mrs. Wilson asked Lori why she didn't listen to her, and for the first time, Mrs. Wilson listened to Laurie's frustrations. Mrs. Wilson learned that Laurie wanted an understanding friend, not a bossy mother. By listening to her, their relationship improved and Laurie became more cooperative. So let the other person do most of the talking. Lesson 16. How to get cooperation. If you want to motivate people or get their cooperation, remember that people are more motivated to do something if that idea comes from them. Look at this example to understand better. The author's student Adolf is a sales manager and their sales were down. One day Adolf called a meeting of his team and asked them, I am your manager. Tell me, what do you expect from me as a manager? As they told him about it, he wrote the ideas on a blackboard and promised the team that he will give them what they expect. Then he asked them, now tell me, what rights do I have? What should I expect from you? The team said many things like loyalty, honesty, 8 hours of enthusiastic work. Adolf did not say anything. It was their idea and they believed that the manager had the right to expect these things. After that meeting, there was a different energy in the team. They worked hard and the sales increased drastically. So let the other person feel that the idea is his or hers. Lesson 17. A formula that will work wonders for you. Everything a person does, there is a reason behind that. When you see the situation from their eyes, you will find that reason and then you can understand them better and you might be able to influence their actions. Sam is one of the author's students who didn't like what his wife did every day. She would work too hard in the lawn, she would pull the weeds, cut the grass, but the lawn did not look any better. Sam would argue with his wife why she was working so hard on the lawn, but when he saw the situation from her eyes, he realized that she did it because she enjoyed it. After that, he started helping her and complimenting her for what she was doing. So try to see things from other person's point of view. Lesson 18. What everybody wants. Imagine you are a son or a daughter of a farmer who did not provide you with any education and forced you to help them on the farm. You did what they told you to do and you ended up being a farmer. Is it your fault that you are a farmer today? I don't think so. If your parents are rich and you got all their wealth in inheritance and you got a good education, do you think you deserve the credit? Whatever people are today, they are that way because of the experiences and background they had. So when you don't like someone's behavior, remember that it's not totally their fault. They might be behaving this way because of their past bad experiences. So sympathize with people. Lesson 19. An appeal that everybody likes. There's a reason why people do something, but sometimes it is better not to talk about that reason. Instead, talk about the nobler motives. Nobler motive means values that have been taught to all of us since we were children. Something that we all can truly understand, like be honest, respect your elders, stealing is bad, etc. When Lord Northcliffe found that a newspaper was using a picture of him that he did not want published, he wrote a letter to the editor in which he said, "Please do not publish that picture of me. My mother doesn't like it." We all love our mothers, we value our mothers. It's a nobler motive. Another example is of John D. Rockefeller, who wanted to stop photographers from taking the pictures of his children. He did not shout or anything. He told them, "You know how it is, boys. You've got children yourself. You know it's not good for youngsters to get too much publicity." In these examples, the newspapers wanted those pictures to increase their sales. But these influential men did not talk about that. Instead, they talked about the nobler motives. Remember that the lessons in this book might not work in every situation, but there is nothing wrong in experimenting. So talk about the nobler motives. Lesson 20. The movies do it, TV does it, why don't you do it? Sometimes saying the truth is not enough, you must show it. There is a newspaper called the Bulletin. Once there were rumors that Bulletin had too many advertisements and very little news. Advertisers were being told that newspaper was no longer attractive to the readers. To tackle this rumor, Bulletin took one of their newspapers, took out all the reading material from it and published it as a book. The book contained 307 pages, just news, no ads. Everyone got the answer that this is just a fake rumor. In TV ads, no advertisers will just come and praise their product. Instead, they show you how that product makes people happy. So show your ideas. Lesson 21. When nothing else works, try this. Charles Schwab was the president of the steel company. Once in a mill, the laborers were not producing their quota of work. The manager told Schwab that laborers were not working hard enough. He motivated them, threatened them, but nothing worked. When the day shift ended, Schwab asked a laborer, "How many heats did your shift make today?" "6, the laborer said. Schwab took a chalk and wrote a big 6 on the floor. When the laborers of the night shift came, they asked about the written 6. The day laborers told them that this is how many heats they made today. After the night shift, the night laborers had completed 7 heats, so they erased 6 and wrote 7. The next day, the day laborers came, and when they saw 7, they began to feel competitive and completed 10 heats that day. Scobb says that the way to get things done is to stimulate competition, not in a money getting way, but in the desire to excel. So give them competition. To watch the next part, click here.